Good day, Junior Techies, and welcome to this video dealing with the worksheet question 1. My name is Mr. P. I'm going to be taking you through this question of this section. Do join me, and hopefully by the end of this video and the others, we will have a better understanding of our topic on cellular respiration. So the first thing we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at question 1 of the worksheet. So this is where we see our typical question, both A, B, A only, B only type questions or none, keeping in mind that the question here asks us to answer in a very specific way. So here we need to either write down A only, B only, both A and B, or none as our answer. There are no other options available for us. So once we start reasoning through each one of these questions, we need to select from one of those 4 possible answers. So looking at question 1.1, just a quick question analysis here. This says to us here that whatever we're talking about forms during anaerobic respiration in animals. Now, if we think of anaerobic respiration, what we should click to automatically is the fact that with anaerobic respiration, there is no oxygen present. And if no oxygen is present, when we look at the process of cellular respiration, we're only moving through the process of glycolysis first. We do not move into the Krebs cycle, and we do not move into oxidative phosphorylation. So if we think of the process of glycolysis, we'll see that at the end of glycolysis, we've got pyruvic acid, and then when oxygen is not present, this pyruvic acid is then converted into a lactic acid. So the answer to this question would be both A and B, because during anaerobic respiration, I'm first producing pyruvic acid, and then later on this is converted from pyruvic acid to lactic acid at the end of the day. If we look at question 1.2 now, let's read it quickly. A phase in anaerobic respiration. Now, we've just said, or we've just reasoned out for ourselves in question 1.1 that glycolysis is the formation of lactic acid at the end of the day. So in other words, glycolysis is the anaerobic process where we produce lactic acid. If we look at question 1.2, a phase in anaerobic respiration, and our options here are A, Krebs cycle, and B, oxidative phosphorylation, neither of which are part of glycolysis, which would mean that both A and B are actually part of aerobic respiration, which would mean that the answer to this question are going to be, or is going to be, neither A or B. Or in this case, looking at the question and the way we're supposed to answer it, it's none. Question 1.3 occurs during the Krebs cycle. Now, option A says to us there is a release of carbon dioxide, and B says there's a formation of ATP. Now, if we look carefully, we know that CO2 is produced through the Krebs cycle, but there is no energy or ATP that is produced here. So my answer to question 1.3 would be A only. Question 1.4 only takes place when oxygen is present. Now, if I look at both my options A and B, glycolysis, I can see, takes place in the cytoplasm, but is an anaerobic process where we break down glucose. So I know the one option here where oxygen is not necessary is option A. And option B with the Krebs cycle, now the oxygen is not necessarily used in the Krebs cycle per se, but we don't move into the Krebs cycle unless the oxygen is there for oxidative phosphorylation. So we have here the option B as being the correct answer, because oxygen is not directly necessary in the Krebs cycle, but is directly necessary when it comes to oxidative phosphorylation. So aerobic respiration involves the Krebs cycle and oxidative phosphorylation, but glycolysis does not. So my option here is B only. But just keep in mind that oxygen is not directly involved in the Krebs cycle. It is, however, necessary to further the process of aerobic respiration through the Krebs cycle to oxidative phosphorylation. 1.5. The applications of anaerobic respiration. Here we talk specifically about fermentation, and fermentation we could both use in wine making as well as bread making. So in this case, I would have the answers of both A and B. All right, so just a couple of hints here, or some things to remember. We need to make sure that we are presenting our answers according to what the question asks. And in this case, I need to make sure that the only answer that exists next to question 1.1 to 1.5 is either both A and B, A only, B only, or none. No other answer is going to be accepted in this case. Right, Junior Tickies, thanks so much for joining me here with this question 1 of cellular respiration. Please make sure, if you have not already done so, get a hold of a copy of the worksheet and worksheet memorandum. Work through those questions with me through the videos and get a better understanding for this section to better prepare for your final exams. Right, thanks again, Junior Tickies. I do hope to see you again.